Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Great to have you on this call, this instructional video. My name is Justin Phillips. I'm a wellness coach, and today I'm interviewing the amazing Cyril Burke from emfbusters.com.au. Cyril Burke is a electromagnetic field expert in and minimizing that impact and shielding us from the dangers of that. And I've actually been a client of Cyril. He's come to my house, done all the testing. It's been amazing, and I'm at the point where I'm installing the products that Cyril has supplied me to protect me and my family. And I just wanted to go through the step-by-step guide in some of those processes to help myself and of course other people in the future. You're watching this video, you're probably in my shoes and going, okay, how do I do this? So this is meant to be a practical instructional video. And just to recap, Cyril Burke is from emfbusters.com.au, and that will actually take you to his main website, which is healthexpressworld.com. He also has another website which is for professional testing equipment, which is emfsafety.com.au as well. So welcome to the call, Cyril. G'day.
Hi, Justin. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Fantastic. Well, I'm really excited to get this these shielding products into my home and to see the changes in the meters. I can't wait for that. So we made a little bit of a head start. So there's three aspects to shielding my house, and that is the magnetic fields. We had some big magnetic fields from the meter box, which is on the wall of my bedroom. And until I realised that, I had some major symptoms and headaches from that. Moved the bed, got better, but still these big invisible magnetic fields that we want to minimise and to stop any potential harmful effects. And for that, we used some cobalt shielding, and we had an electrician come and put a cobalt shielding in the back of the meter box. I don't have that as a sample to show. I've got all the other toys to show, but that's the only one I don't have. And that was relatively simple. He did, he just turned off all the electricity, put it in the back of the box, screwed it into the back of the meter box, and it just gave a shield from the magnetic field. The second thing was some foil. So in order to shield the walls and stop that EMF from coming through the walls, we opted...
That was the window. That's for the windows.
Yeah, so this one is for the windows. This is the window foil, and we opted for the bronze color, which is very good as a thermal property. And it's also quite reflective on the outside, not on the inside. It looks like it on the foil, but once that went on the window, I was very pleasantly surprised that it still let quite a lot of light in and didn't change the color of the light that much, but very easy to install. So that's
there as an RF shield. That works on your neighbor's Wi-Fi and the telephone networks and basically all the other transmissions that are outside the electric fields that are coming in from radio transmissions, etc. That's what that's going to keep out through the window, because your window is a big hole where it all just pummels through the house. So by putting that in the window, you get a thermal effect. It reduces the heating in the room, and that's obviously a great advantage here in Australia. But the main thing is that you're getting really good RF shielding as well. And now, we're supporting that by actually shielding the inside of the room with graphite paints as well. So that's part of what we're going to talk about in a minute.
Absolutely. So all the products rocked up. They're in sort of very professional paper. Sealable bags in a big box, and with that shielding came some...
That's a concentrate. That's a mounting concentrate. So for every 3 meters of material, you use about 30 milliliters of mounting concentrate. And you probably saw the installer. He would have probably put that on a little sprayer and sprayed it on the window after he'd done a very immaculate clean. But it's designed for the public to install it as well. And one of the ways we really help our clients is, like your bedrooms, we measured not only the window frame, but we measured each individual pane, and then we put those details into a software that we have, and that creates a big jigsaw puzzle, so that you basically don't need to buy excessive amounts of material. We know exactly where every cut's going to be. Your installer or yourself will know exactly, if he cuts it to that pattern, you'll have exactly the right material you need with minimum waste. And that's and I think your installer actually enjoyed having someone provide one of those to him.
He was very impressed with how exactly it was all cut out, and Yeah, it was all a very simple process. We just called a local a window tinting expert. He's been a commercial and residential window tinter expert for many years, and he was like, "Yep, this is no worry." So he just put the concentrate in the spray bottle, cleaned the windows, did this concentrate, did the foil on, used the squidgies as well that are supplied, and it was done in a couple of hours, not even an hour and a half, I think, for 2 bedrooms. So, and I think that was total cost of $200 for his labour. So yeah, I was happy because I was freaking out I was going to ruin it.
No,
But
I understand.
if you're more handy, I think you could do it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So that's how the windows are done, and we have a range of colours that people can use. But that bronze one is definitely the best value, and it's the highest rating for shielding, which is wonderful.
Mm.
And as you say, it provides a certain level of privacy inside and out of the room through the glass as well. So if you've got a great view, you do get your view. You don't lose your view, but it also creates a bit of privacy on the way in. So that's good.
Mm.
Some people also back that up by putting curtains which have RF shielding as well. So there's fabrics and other materials that we can make available for people to see as well.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. So that does your windows, and now we need to address the walls. So, and this includes the ceiling as well, right?
That's
So
right.
we want to paint the entire inside of the room. Even like I've got swinging doors, I've got sliding doors, and cupboards. You would do cupboard doors as well to just
Mm.
completely cover your shielding to not allow any of that EMF in. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we hold back on the cupboard door because you may have a cupboard that might have a sliding glass door, for example. So that's where you'd normally dismount the sliding door from a built-in wardrobe, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
then you'd paint straight into the back and the walls of that cupboard, because you're creating a perimeter in that room where the back of the wall of the cupboard or the size of the cupboard may be the actual outer perimeter of that room, so to speak, or the internal perimeter. So yeah, so depending on what the material is, often you might do that as well.
Forgot to mention, 8 weeks after the installation of the foil, there's this pen
It's a
fluid to
sealing
seal
pen.
to
Yeah.
seal the fluid the foil, isn't it? So
So we refer
apologies.
to it as an edge pen, and that once the material is adhered and cured and absolutely stable, then you shake it up and you run it round the edge,
Yep.
and that secures it entirely and seals the edge of the material, so nothing oxidizes in that area. So that's one thing you just have to wait for a few weeks.
Yep. Fantastic. So we'll be doing that soon. The other thing is before we paint, we want to actually tape in the
Well,
walls. Yeah.
there's a few steps before that, Justin.
Okay.
Shall I run you through those?
Well,
Well,
please do. You're the expert.
your your property was a good example. You had a beautiful new modern house, but you'd had flooding, hadn't you? You'd had water leaks,
Yeah.
and that's, doesn't happen to everybody very often, but when it does happen, it can leave issues in the plaster, it can lead mold, it can lead damp areas, etc. So when we actually do an EMF consult, we actually bring along a thermal imaging camera as well. So we actually have a look at those rooms, and in your case, it was a lounge and various other areas we checked out, and we were able to double check to make sure that the house has dried the way it should have. Now, in a modern house, that's sometimes it's not really not an issue, but very often in an older house, maybe a Queenslander or things of this nature, where they've been established for many decades, sometimes there might be roof issues and things like that that won't be visible or understood by the owner until we bring that thermal imager out, and we can see the levels of bats in the ceiling. I'm not talking the big flying ones, I'm talking about the thermal bats that go in the
The
ceiling,
battens.
and if there are leaks that maybe are causing damp areas in the wall, particularly along the base, skirting boards, things like this, we'll pull out the thermal imager and we'll just double check the whole room, so that if there's any remediation that needs to be done by the owner regarding mold and damp, all of that is understood well ahead of time, so they can prepare the room properly, because we want that material to last as long as the house. So we want the walls to be in good condition. Once that's done, If somebody's looking at having a room done and we haven't been to the property, they're very welcome to send us the dimensions of the room and the dimensions of the window, and we can calculate it on our computer anyway. So it's very easy for us to do that for people, and it's a service we provide. So we've been there, we've checked, in this case with a thermal imager, we can see the condition of the walls, any advice. You're actually having insurance work done, if I remember, to have certain things repaired, and then that room will be ready to paint. Now, the first thing is we don't put the paint straight on the wall. What we're looking to do is using the primer, which comes as a 1 litre unit, and that 1 litre actually dilutes into 4 litres of water, so you get about 5 litres overall. For each litre, that is able to cover about almost 40 square meters of wall. It's 37.5, if I remember, the Germans worked it out to be, but you find about 40 meters spread. That means you've basically provided a surface on the wall where it will key in with the paint on any surface that you've got there. So 1 litre will actually cover maybe at least 3 bedrooms, at least for most households, and we calculate that out to make sure people have got enough for it. The next thing is you put, obviously you've moved your furniture and opened the space up, etc., and put down all your mats and things to collect paint in if you drip it from the ceiling. And then you're going to roll the material and paint in the whole room with the first layer of the paint. And oh, you have one here. There you go.
One of them.
So this is HS54. This is a fantastic paint from Germany, and we bring that in bulk and supply to builders and home renovators, as well as EMF shielding companies around the country. We supply them with it. So building biologists and people like that provide it for their clients. So if somebody has a clinic or that sort of role, we're happy to talk to them about wholesale and make them available. So first job is you paint that layer, and remembering that the manufacturers are looking for between 5 and 7 liters, square meters per liter, which is a heavier layer of paint than your domestic, whitewash that you might paint a house with. So you're going to put on more paint, a heavier layer of paint than you might initially perceive. But we calculate it out with the computer, so we know exactly how much paint would be planned for each room. So you do that first layer. So now you've basically primed it. You've put the first layer in. Now, near a GPO, a general purpose outlet, a power socket, you want to plan to where we're going to put the earthing connection. Now, on your table there, I believe you've got one of the earthing connectors. There you go. That's a metal plate, and there's a plastic cover that goes over it. So it just looks like a white fitting, and there's a tag and a screw that the electrician will connect. Now you plan for where this is going to go. You want it approximately 6 inches above a GPO, the power outlet in the wall. The reason I say that, it makes the job much easier for the electrician. You don't want to go left or right of your GPO, because if you go left or right, typically you'll end up putting a vertical member between there and the GPO, and then the electrician's got a nuisance trying to get it across to the power socket.
Might be a good idea for me, because when you first said GPO, I wasn't quite sure what you meant. So it's a general power outlet. Your standard power socket. Yeah.
It's your power socket. That's exactly right. So you've probably got one of those around your bedroom, maybe near your bed, somewhere like that. So plan about 6 inches above it. So that's an area that you're not going to paint your undercoats and your top coats when you put the color on after applying the shielding. That's one space where you're going to leave it unpainted, because that metal plate is going to screw straight on to the shielding tape that you've got there. You've got a roll of shielding tape that we wrap around the room, and you've also got obviously the conductive paint on the wall, which wants to connect directly to that plate. And with the little tag you've got there, an electrician will crimp an earth wire to it and feed that back into the wall and drop it down to the earth that's on the circuit there. So the wall is protected by your residual current detector, your RCD circuit. Okay. And the reason is that in building standards here in Australia, there is a scenario that, even though it could possibly be quite remote, we plan against having this issue occur. And that's where maybe a rodent, a mouse, a rat decides to eat into your power cables and then sacrifice itself on maybe a conductive area that could come in contact with the wall. Now, your electrical circuit in the power, in the GPOs, in the general purpose outlets, they're protected by an RCD anyway, a residual current detector. But for any scenario, they've asked for all conductive surfaces of this nature, just like a stainless steel kitchen bench and things like that. They all have to be earthed so that it reduces any chance of an electrical field coming in contact with the resident. It protects the public, so to speak. So that's why this plate is used. So that's one space that you're not going to put top color paint on, because you'll eventually screw that onto the wall to be connected to your earth. So typically you might take a pencil and draw around it on the wall and say, okay, that bit I'm not going to paint the top colors on. But you are going to have the conductive tape, which has a conductive glue, and it's a material that when you wrap around the wall and up over the ceiling, connects all the areas together, and that paint will be hidden under the paint. That tape will be hidden under the paint. We do recommend to run that around on top of that first layer of conductive paint. So you've put the primer on, you've put the first layer of paint on all the way around, up to the covings, up onto the ceiling, all the way around the room, and then this one, that tape, you'll wrap the room up like a parcel. You want it to cross every area where you have a corner or where sheeting may potentially in the future separate. So your ceiling isn't one giant piece of plaster. It's actually made up of maybe 5 or 6 narrow, wide, what do they call it?
Plasterboards.
Plasterboards, yeah. So they're lifted up. They put them up in the ceiling, and then they putty between them and fill the gaps. Well, in the future, potentially one of those might dry out and crack and separate. So that's why we run a tape across the edge of all of them, so they're all electrically positively connected. Okay. It's sort of a safety component. Now,
so I'm gonna run the tape across the ceiling, and then down the wall, and would I run that all around the bottom, just above the skirting board as well?
That's right. And what we recommend is not to try and run it directly across an open space of ceiling or wall, right? Because even though it has very, very low profile, your eye will always pick up the tiniest hair lying on that area. So if you run it parallel to what is a strong parallel line, like a corner or the coving, your eye will always focus on the stronger element, which is the actual plaster or the skirting board, etc. It's just a little trick of the eye. If you were to put even just lay a piece of sellotape on the ceiling or wall, you'll always see it, even the tiniest profile. So that's why we suggest that you just run it parallel to the coving, parallel to a wall, a corner, and then down and up to that earthing point on the wall.
So I might run it literally along that top edge.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
That's it, and it will connect all those boards together for you.
Yep, brilliant. And I will have to take a piece of tape from the ceiling down the wall too, so best to do that in the corner too.
Yeah, just run it down the corner.
Yeah.
Now that way you'll have that first layer done with the earthing in place, and the end of the earthing cable or earthing tape, you'll have that enter into that area where you've decided to put that earthing plate. There you go. So it will go into there, and you might have one tape going one way and another tape going the other, depending on the shape of the room and how you're doing it. Yeah, because you're going to screw that directly over the top of it. That's it, and then the electrician will connect it up afterwards. And there's a plastic cover that just makes it look like a little light switch or whatever. It just disappears behind that plastic cover. That's it.
Great.
And then once you've done that, you'll then be able to put on the remaining layers of paint. And remember, the layers, when you're normally painting paint, you'll think of a layer as, you've put the color on, you're happy, you let it dry, and then you paint another color. Well, with shielding paint, you're really about actually trying to get the volume of paint onto the wall rather than is it black or not black. Okay, because we'll calculate to the manufacturer's specs the amount of paint per meter, so to speak. So 1 litre tends to be between about 5 and 7 litres, and we'll calculate for your room to make that the most suitable way for your room. But that doesn't mean that if you've got a tin left over, for example, you'll go, oh, have I bought too much paint? No, you haven't, because we've worked it out. You still need to get that paint on the wall because that's where your shielding is, okay? That's where that conductive material is. Now, once it's on the wall and it's all there and it's dried, then you normally use 2 layers of standard undercoat, normally white, because remember the wall is black now, right? It's sort of the Ford process. If you remember, Ford said you can have a car any color you want as long as it's black. Well, that's a bit like carbon paint. There's no point putting anything in there that isn't what you want. You don't want pigment, color pigment. What you want is graphite paint, especially there to pull the electric field to ground. So that's the objective. So you put 2 layers of undercoat on top of it. That way, that's the base for your color for your room. Normally 2 layers is more than enough to bring the room back to a sort of domestic color paint. And then you can use any of your normal standard internal paints to paint the room as normal. And you'll have a room that will look exactly the same as any other room, except you've got a fully operational Faraday cage. Now, if your room is on a concrete slab on ground level, which most are, then we don't tend to get concerned about the floor. If you're on let's say a Queenslander with wooden floors and you might be on the 1st or even 2nd story, then during the testing or consulting with us over the phone, we can help you assess what the next option might be. I'm actually in a house at the moment, which is an old Queenslander, 1930s odd. So we actually have electrical cables under the floorboards, right under the bed. So in our case, we haven't painted the room, we haven't painted the floor. What we've done is we've laid conductive materials, and we've got a range of those, which you put under a rug, and that then isolates the bed and those areas from that electric field. So they're tailored solutions for people who might need additional help that we can do over the phone or part of a consult process. But for a modern house like yours, concrete floor, there's no power under that, and it's an ideal way to start that shielding process.
And while you're talking about the different solutions, because you've got a huge amount of experience in testing for EMFs now, you've found that 99% of people, the solution is almost identical. It's got slight variations between foil or curtains, or maybe they're above ground level, maybe they're not, but pretty much the painting and just the shielding of the bedroom is 99% the same. It's the one solution pretty much for nearly everyone, with just these minor tweaks, and you can do a lot of that consultation over the phone.
Right, and that's actually what we do. I mean, we've done hundreds and hundreds of on-site tests, and they're ideal at finding things that maybe you wouldn't get an initial understanding of over the phone. Like sometimes if there's a wiring issue that's producing a magnetic field that's a problem that nobody knows about, we tend to put the magnetic meters on the pillows in the bedroom and go, okay, is there something there happening that we don't understand?
And that was the case with my house. I had 2 magnetic fields because something's happened at build time where they've split wires. So yeah, I had to protect against that.
And other things is they've put maybe inverters, power inverters, solar inverters, swimming pool pumps, air conditioning units underneath the bed, underneath the floor. They may have put a power cable that comes from the grid that you can't turn off at your junction box. They may have put that under your floor or on your ceiling. So there are a number of variables that can come in that we may not be able to locate until we actually get on site. But A lot of the time, the solution can be provided very low cost by a conversation over the phone. We know what questions to ask and get people out with a torch and say, have a look underneath.
Mm.
And if we find that there's an issue, like for your one by your bedside, you've got a junction box, and that's where we measured it and we went, okay, you need a magnetic shield. And up until probably a year and a half ago, when we started importing it, there wasn't a good solution for magnetics at all. In fact, some people still say, oh, you can't shield against magnetics, because they don't know that these products are available. So
Yeah.
we import cobalt alloys that are in a foil that we can literally provide by the meter, and then they're very flexible and they can be folded like wrapping paper, and then bolted into the back of a junction box. An electrician can do that for you and earth it, and you get incredible results. In fact, there's a video on our website. If somebody goes to emfbusters.com.au, go to the video area, and the top row of videos, one of them is a demonstration of EMF, should I say magnetic field shielding, and you'll just see how flexible and easy that is to work with. So that's a wonderful tool that we've made available to the public, and there are electricians and all sorts of people buying that material to make use of it, and it has a colossal impact on magnetic fields, which is wonderful.
Mm. And just to wrap up, one of the things that you talked about was the majority of bedrooms, it costs around that $3,000 worth of, approximately $3,000 worth of the cost of goods in order to shield the bedroom. So
That's right. Yeah.
so whether a person decides to install their own shielding, or pay for someone else to do it, then that's going to be an extra cost. But just the cost of goods, approximately $3,000 per bedroom. In my case, I feel like that's an investment in a house that I don't want to be without. It's just such an important thing to protect my family and my health going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, look, absolutely, and it's very, very difficult for people sometimes to realize how big the problem is. But if you go onto PubMed, the peer-reviewed sites, and you put in 50 hertz, so 50 Hz as in a frequency, 50 hertz, and then put Epstein bar, you'll find documents there showing that the 50 hertz supply in the wall induces Epstein bar into the body. And unfortunately, that is one of the catalysts for a whole range of diseases and illnesses. And it doesn't always express as Epstein-Barr in the body. All sorts of exhaustion and chronic disease is being induced by this 50 hertz supply. So when we help people focus on how to use their Wi-Fi and not to have it transmitting all day, and to use hard cables, and how to change the usage of their phone and push it away across the table, and different activities related to telephones, people often are completely oblivious to the damage that's being done by the electric field in their bedroom. And with this process that we provided to you of putting foils in the window, sealing the whole room like a Faraday cage with graphite, blocking out the magnetics where it's an issue, you really have caused all those energies to be held away from you. And that's really, really important, and it'll have a big impact on rest, sleep, REM comes back, and most incredibly, you get proper release of melatonin in the body, because the body sees the electric field as light. So even though you turn the light bulb off, the electric field is tricking your body and still making it think the electric field is a light. You're under a floodlight. Your brain doesn't shrink overnight. You don't get the lymphatic flush you need. And look at the major deaths in retirement homes today. It's all to do with toxicity in the brain. If you sleep in a room where you're not getting the electric field pummeling you all night, your body gets to detox. And that's the summary of the whole thing. Really important to understand that.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your help today, Cyril. Just encourage people to go to your website and give you a call. I know you do a lot of, you take calls, inquiry calls, and help people get an idea of what's going to be appropriate for them. And that's the go-to place to start to take action and make a big difference in people's health and well-being, and live a better quality of life, protect yourself from EMF, and have a great night's sleep. So
and it's a free phone number. We got free phone for Australia and free phone for our clients in New Zealand as well. So I'm sure you'll put those in the paperwork.
Yep, they'll be in the show notes and the video notes, and we'll put some links down below. What's the phone number for Australia and New Zealand?
Well, the Australian one is 1300 863 000. The New Zealand one, which I don't dial very often. Hang on a
Yeah,
sec.
yeah. It's funny you don't dial yourself for it.
It's an 08 number. I can't remember the number. I'm sure you'll put it on there.
No worries. So the Australian number is 1300 863 000.
That's it. Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, Cyril. I'm very excited to get to work and shield my bedroom and my daughter's bedroom. Thank you very much for your time.
Marvelous. Nice to speak to you, Justin. Bye.
Bye-bye.